The upper Headwaters Yellow River Watershed is located in northeastern Marshall County and includes portions of St. Joseph, Elkhart, and Kosciuszko counties. As part of the Kankakee River Watershed, it covers over 187,000 acres.
A watershed is all the land that drains to a certain point. A watershed can be very small, from the amount of water that runs off of your house to everything that runs down to the Mississippi and into the Gulf of Mexico. It depends on the project you're working on and what you might investigate and what your management goals are. A watershed is only as good as the sum of its parts, so all pieces within a watershed contribute to it. Everything runs downhill, so everything that's in the Headwaters Yellow River watershed eventually runs into the Mississippi River and into the Gulf of Mexico. So what we do here impacts everyone downstream.
The main stream originates north of Bremen in St. Joseph County and flows southwest, eventually through Plymouth. It continues to flow west and drains into the Kankakee River near Knox. The land is primarily used for agriculture. Straight channels produced from ditching, dredging, and channelization associated with agricultural production characterize the area. Currently, wetlands and open water make up only 4% of the total watershed. 200 years ago, the wetland percentage was as high as 30%. Populated areas include Bremen, La Paz, Lakeville, and sections of Plymouth and Napanee. The remainder of the watershed is forested, pastureland, and grassland. In 2015, Marshall County's Soil and Water was awarded a grant from Indiana Department of Environmental Management to study the watershed and come up with a plan to reduce water pollution.
So we first have to start with the planning phase and do a watershed management plan, and we chose this Headwaters, the Yellow River watershed area to start with, and then come up with a plan that would give us guidance, and we'd characterize any issues or problems we've seen in the area and work with the landowners in implementing some conservation practices to remedy those solutions. And we also partner with the LAIR, which is the Lakes and River Enhancement Act or grant through the state of Indiana. And we worked with them in partnership with them in helping complete some of the water testing requirements that were a part of the grant from the EPA. Once we get that plan in place, then it gives us more direction and focus on some of the issues that are at hand or that we have identified throughout the watershed planning process that we can then apply for another grant, which would be the implementation grant with the same funding process. We're not guaranteed that we'll get that grant, but we're set up in a position where we build some relationship with other counties, other agencies like the Farm Service Agency and the Natural Resource Conservation Service, some other groups, the Arrowhead Conservation. We've partnered with those organizations, and now we've got a good foundation for applying for the next phase in grant. We can then use this plan to go down and look for projects that are available or outreach education and continue the process on getting some boots on the ground and doing some projects that will help improve the soil and water conservation here in Marshall County and the surrounding counties.
As part of the watershed study, water samples, macroinvertebrate surveys, and habitat surveys were completed in 12 separate sampling sites over a 12-month period. The 12 sites are shown here. Multiple storm flow and base flow events were captured, providing a broad representation of the condition of each stream. Stormwater runoff from urban areas and agricultural fields can deposit significant quantities of sediment and nutrients into ditches, streams, and rivers. These pollutants can have significant impacts on water quality, both locally and collectively. The water samples collected as part of this study were analyzed for total phosphorus, nitrogen, and E. coli levels.
Some of the outcomes from the year of sampling, we noticed that E. coli levels within the watershed were high. They exceeded the state standard approximately 80% of the time, which is not necessarily uncommon for Indiana. There's a lot of watersheds that share similar problems that the headwaters of the Yellow River have, but they were definitely highest during storm events, and it was a problem at most of the sites that we sampled. Also had high levels of total phosphorus and nitrogen within the different sampling sites, but we really saw a drastic change between storm and base flow conditions. Most of the nutrient sediment loading within the watershed occurs during those stormwater events. Being able to track each site through a variety of conditions was very helpful to come up with management decisions and prioritizing where we do work within the watershed.
The Marshall County Soil and Water Conservation District, along with several partners, is working with area producers and homeowners to voluntarily adopt conservation practices to improve water quality in this watershed and throughout Marshall County. Planting cover crops is an important practice for reducing pollution in the watershed. Cover crops can help reduce erosion, improve soil structure, moisture, and nutrient content. In addition, they can help suppress weeds, facilitate crop pollinators, provide wildlife habitat, and forage for farm animals. Cover crops can also provide energy savings both by adding nitrogen to the soil and making more soil nutrients available, thereby reducing the need to apply fertilizer. Excluding livestock from streams and lakes reduces stream bank erosion and decreases the amount of sediment that local waterways carry. It also eliminates the bacteria associated with livestock waste that causes illness in both animals and humans. Filter strips are generally located at the lower edges of a field and are designed to serve as a buffer between a field and environmentally sensitive areas, such as lakes, streams, and wetlands. In addition to serving as a buffer, with proper plant selection and management, filter strips can provide additional benefits such as improved fish and wildlife habitat, improved field access, and increased livestock forage. Two-stage ditches are drainage ditches that have been modified by adding shelves that serve as floodplains within the overall channel, leading to greater channel stability. These shelves can function as wetlands during certain times of the year, reducing ditch nutrient loads. This results in a more sustainable ditch that restores some of the beneficial natural processes within the ditch environment, while providing the drainage capacity necessary for production. In addition, preserving existing natural areas like riparian buffers and wetlands can help to prevent pollutants from entering rivers and streams. Riparian buffers are strips of vegetation that separate aquatic ecosystems from managed lands, both urban and rural. They maintain water quality by acting as filters to lessen the amount of pollutants from entering the streams. Forested buffers such as these also provide wildlife habitat, provide shade in the streams, stream bank stabilization, and food and habitat for aquatic organisms. Wetlands are important in the watershed for many reasons. They act like a natural sponge, storing water and slowly releasing it. Wetlands also act as a natural filtration system. Because water is slowed in the wetland, much of the water's nutrient and pollutant load is removed by the time it leaves the wetland. More than 1/3 of the United States' threatened and endangered species live only in wetlands, and nearly half of all species use wetlands at some point in their lives. Wetlands are among the most productive ecosystems in the world and provide great volumes of food that attract many animal species. Located in Kosciuszko County, Glenwood Nature Preserve hosts a quaking bog, a specific type of wetland. Located on the corner of County Road 700 West and County Road 650 North, it is managed by Acres Land Trust. Birds often use areas such as this preserve during migration and depend on them for their survival. We all live in a watershed, and you can have a positive impact by planting cover crops, excluding livestock from waterways, utilizing filter strips and two-stage ditches, protecting riparian buffers, and natural areas and wetlands. You can keep our waters clean and healthy, both now and for future generations. We all live downstream from someone, and we need your help to make a difference.